the most that I'll be going through for this morning session, like what I have said a while ago also, no, SDN is a pretty large technology on its own. And couple that with another technology which is called NFV, Network Functions Virtualization. No, despite the complexities that both of these technologies have in play, the course that we have offered, no, in the Learning Hub and in the course itself in general, no, we have focused more on the foundational aspect of it. So even though there are a lot of nuances and technicalities on what these technologies would be dealing with, no, we just focus first on the foundationals and on the basics. No? Okay, so with that intro out of the way, I'll now proceed now with the discussion. No? Now, the Learning Hub itself it consists of, if I'm not mistaken, around 8 modules. And most of the topics that I'll be, or most of the items that I'll be discussing and presenting to you today is in fact can be found in module 2. No? The details of those, the different parts of the architecture, as well as the different protocols, no, the specific nuances can be found in the other modules. And I found it fitting that this specific module already covers enough of the basics so that it can be congested in an hour or 2 hours worth. No? So let me share my PowerPoint. Let me view here as a slideshow. Okay. Okay, so having said that, no, this module that I'll be now discussing with you guys is now focused more on the first off, no, what is the technology in itself? What is SDN? Software-defined networking. Its different architectural components, no, as well as what is its general purpose, no. Aside from that, I'll also show to you here the benefits, advantages, and limitations of SDN because like other technologies, SDN or software-defined networking, even though this has already served as a key technology in some of the backhaul and backplane infrastructure that is currently running in most of the telecommunications and enterprise architectures that we have nowadays, no? It still has its roots and foundations in the IT space. Okay, so I'll also discuss it here. And apart from that, I'll also discuss to you here one of the most common protocols that SDN is currently using. So that is what's called OpenFlow. OpenFlow, this is an open source protocol that is used to run software-defined networks. So when we talk about also software-defined networks, kasi, remember that we are also dealing with a specific architecture, a network architecture of that. And this network architecture needs certain protocols for it to operate on so that it knows how to process the packets accordingly. So yun. Then after which, I'll now go into another technology that is, well, arguably it can be treated as a separate technology on its own without the help of SDN, and that is called NFV, Network Functions Virtualization. I say that this is a separate technology on its own because in theory and sometimes also in other use cases, both SDN and NFV can work individually and independently from each other. Okay, some operators just have SDN, some of them have NFV, some of them has a combination of both, some of them have several iterations because both technologies can even be deployed on different or using different ways and means. Okay, and with that being said, the last item that I'll be discussing here, because they don't necessarily have to work together to offer a specific service or operation, no? Still, the idea is there on how can I now combine these two technologies so that I can deliver a complete end-to-end service or architecture. Okay, so those would be the discussion points that we'll be having. Now, with that being said, no, What is SDN first? Software-defined networking. So taking the major term here, which is software-defined. No, this is an approach on networking wherein if we're going to take the definition of SDN, no, it just means splitting the control plane from the user plane. Okay, that's the very basic definition of it, in fact. No? But you may be wondering, Sir Liber, what do you mean by splitting the control plane and user plane? So what do we mean by that? Is this more of like a logical split, or what is the control plane and the user plane anyway? No, because are we referring to the different layers of our OSI layer? If you're familiar with that, no, if you have a background on IP networking, or are these completely different logical planes altogether? Okay. Now, let's take a step back a bit on IP networking first, no? Because that is where also the concept of the planes of operational planes are. No? So normally when you have a traditional network, and by traditional here, we can also refer to a conventional network, switches and packet forwarding network elements. No, it can be routers, hubs, repeaters. No, but I'll focus more on the switch because this better illustrates these two working planes. No, normally when you have a switch, you have, functionally speaking, two operational planes. You have the control plane. And this control plane is, of course, this is a logical representation, wherein majority of the configurations done on the device is being set up. Okay, so meaning it is in the control plane where you set up your ports. It is in the control plane where you also establish the specific protocols a certain switch would be working on. It is also where most of the monitoring, the operational and maintenance, and fault ticketing and performance monitoring is being done for a specific device. Take note of that keyword also, okay? Device, okay? The specific device only. Meaning that the control plane in a conventional IP networking is just isolated on that specific device alone. Okay, meaning whenever I want to forward packets, no, or I want to configure the specific port, no, it's just the port of that given device. Okay, now how about the data plane? What is it? Well, the data plane, this is now the logical plane wherein all of the packet forwarding is being done. This is also where your packets are forwarded from one port to the next. And in some instances, no, this is also where the plane where the packet is being dropped. Essentially, this is the plane where the packet is being processed. Okay. And again, in your conventional IP networking, this is just isolated to your only single device. Both the control and the data plane are independently operating within a specific device only. Meaning, if I do some configurations on, say, the protocol of switch 1, then those configurations are just done on switch 1 only. Okay. If I have to do some configurations on another device, I have to log in via the terminal or the ONM interface of that switch device, and then do the necessary configurations for that specific device only. So there's no notice that the functionality is just isolated within one device. Okay. Now, we take SDN into the picture. Again, the goal or the definition of SDN is that we are separating the control plane from the user plane or the data plane. No? And we do so by centralizing already the control plane to a single entity or to a single network element. And we now call this as the controller. Okay, so in the SDN, an SDN environment, a network engineer or administrator can shape traffic from a centralized control console through the SDN controller. Notice that the architecture of the traditional network versus the SDN network, you now have the control plane as a centralized node, which is still connected to several data plane nodes. Okay? What we are essentially doing here is that in an SDN architecture, no, we are already centralizing all of the configurations to a single logical entity. Okay, so in the SDN, the software is already, and we do so, no? We do this separation by decoupling or removing that separation, no? From the software to the hardware. Okay, so SDN moves a control plane that determines where to send traffic to software and leaves a data plane that actually forwards traffic in the hardware. So this allows network administrators who use SDN to program and control the entire network via a single pane of glass instead of a device per device basis. Now, what we are doing is basically dumbing down our switches to just forwarding packets. Any configurations that are being done is now centralized through the SDN controller. Okay? So, the architecture itself, no, it has or it follows a three-tier layout, no. So it looks something like this. So in the SDN architecture, normally, no, and in most cases, it would comprise of three layers. You have on the topmost your application layer, followed by the control layer, and finally your infrastructure layer. Now, because of the centralized node, no, and means of operating your forwarding packets or your forwarding switches, which is already in the infrastructure layer, the SDN controller of obviously here resides in the control layer. Okay, now all three layers communicate via what's called application programming interfaces or APIs. You have two, no, in your architecture, and this is in reference to your control to your control layer or to your SDN control. So you have your northbound APIs. These are your APIs facing the controller towards the application layer, and you have the southbound, which connects to the forwarding switches. Okay. Notice that in this architecture also, I placed a small note here, no, or from the reference that I got, that the southbound API is also where one of the protocols are residing, which is OpenFlow. But more of that one later on, no? So what you just need to understand in the SDN architecture is that it consists of three layers: your application layer, control layer, and infrastructure layer. And all three layers are connected via APIs. Okay. Now, more definitions on what these specific layers are doing. What are their overall functionalities? So the application layer, notice that the layers themselves, no, it is similar to what if you are familiar to the OSI or to the TCP/IP layers, no, it somewhat follows a similar architecture here, no, or a similar setup. Okay, now, application layer. This is where, sorry, okay, this is the layer where you can find the services where your architecture would be hosting, no? The application here refers more on the type of services that you want to offer to your SDN network. Okay, so we're not talking here about, say, Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office and such. No, the application here refers to specific services, no, such as denial of service or DDoS, anti-DDoS rather. You also have firewalls. You also have web filterings. You have load balancers. These are services that you can run as quote unquote applications in your network. So that's where the application, or this is also where they are residing in the SDN architecture, the application layer. Next up, you have the control layer. So this is now where your SDN controller is residing. This represents the centralized SDN controller software that acts as a brain of the SDN network. Okay? This controller resides on a server or servers and manages policies and traffic flows throughout the network. Okay? Then lastly, you have the infrastructure layer. Now, I gave a lot of emphasis on the SDN controller. Now, this is because the switches. So what happens to your switches when you implement them as or when you implement them inside an SDN architecture already? So it's still a case-to-case basis, but in theory, no, they just become what's called dumb pipes. Okay, so they are just physical switches wherein their only functionality now is just to pass data. Okay, meaning they just get your packets from one port, okay, and then pass it along to the next port to the next connected device. Okay, any decapsulations or any routing that is being done is already being made by the SDN controller itself. So in other words, it is being propagated upwards to your controller before it is encapsulated again and then forwarded back into the network. Okay. So there. Then finally, you have your APIs. So the APIs, this is where most of the communications between the layers happen. There's currently no formal standard for the controller's northbound or southbound APIs. Okay. There is a protocol, take note, a protocol that you can use, which is OpenFlow, but it is not the protocol for SDN. Okay, meaning you can implement SDN even without using OpenFlow. And the reason why we are, well, you might be wondering now, if there are several protocols here, such as BGP, VXLAN, no, VXLAN is not even a protocol, BGP, ISIS, if I'm not mistaken, no? Why do we encourage the use of OpenFlow? Well, basically, it is an open source protocol. Okay, more of that one later on when I discuss what it is. No? So there you go. So this is the SDN architecture again. It consists now of your three layers: your application layer, your control layer, and finally your infrastructure layer. Okay. So I'll now proceed to a comparison. No? So since we've already established that SDN is working as an architecture wherein you are centralizing its means of control through a single node, logical node, no? Apart from this architectural difference, what else is different when we compare it to your conventional networking? No, so here you'll notice, no, we have a, well, obviously number one, architecture wise they are already different, meaning that in your conventional IP networking, configuration and resource provisioning is done independently across devices, meaning whenever you want to provision a new protocol, configure a new protocol, no, you have to do it on one specific device. And if you want to achieve network convergence across your entire network, you have to make sure that the protocol is also understood by the other network elements. No? And essentially, you are also relying on those protocols to have the new device be detected and acknowledged by the network. Okay, so apart from that, no, control is decentralized, meaning that configurations and monitoring is done on a per device level, meaning that you have to log into the individual network devices if you want to configure them. And of course, security is implemented independently, meaning that the devices, if you want to say harden a, if you have a new set of hardware or a new switch and you configure it into your network, apart from just doing the port forwarding configurations and implementing the necessary protocols, no, and turning on the needed ports, no, security measurements or security measures rather are also being done on upper device as well, meaning that you have to log in to that specific device, turn off any unnecessary ports that are not being used, no, block off or harden the network operating system individually. And the hassle here already comes when, say, you are trying to configure and provision, say, X number of switches into your network. Like you have to do them one by one manually. Okay. Now, when we already transition to SDN, you'll now notice that control is now centralized. So this is the one key point or key element that we have to consider. Next one is centralized configuration and resource provisioning. And finally, security is also centralized. Now, here's a bit of a caveat also. No? Just because security in SDN is centralized doesn't mean it is always a good thing, right? It can be both a strength and a possible risk or a possible threat. Okay? This is because obviously, no, when you make um, a network element centralized, it is also vulnerable as a single point of attack, meaning that you have to make sure that this single node is always available and it is not prone for any vulnerabilities, because once they do, they essentially take full control or full configuration in your network. So that's the downside of it. Okay. So with ease of configuration also comes the possible risk of higher vulnerability if security measures are not properly implemented. Okay, so there. Now, what are the benefits of SDN? Why do we even want to implement this into our network? So, of course, number one, simplified policy changes. So, with an SDN environment, because configuration is already done via a single pane of glass, no, an administrator can change anything within your network via that single pane of glass or your SDN controller. So, in other words, implementing policies, firing up new services, no, is already done via the SDN controller, and it is now just the role of the controller to propagate it across your network. So you are essentially streamlining already the process of policy management. So that's one. The next one is network management and visibility. So this one is also related to my first point. So a centralized controller is needed to distribute the policies to the connected switches. This is opposed to configuring multiple individual devices. Okay. Now, next one, reduced hardware footprint and OpEx. Now, SDN, later on, no, I'll be, when I present to you the use cases available, um, just because you implement the SDN controller as a single node doesn't mean that it also would be residing on a single physical server. Okay? It can even go serverless, no, off premise, meaning that the controller does not physically reside in any of your servers that you have on premise, no, or on your physical location, but they are running somewhere else via either a cloud or a cloud service. Okay, so meaning you are reducing your hardware footprint by offsetting it and having it run on a cloud. That's also possible. Okay. And finally, networking innovations. SDN contributed to the emergence of SDN wide area networks, or SD-WAN, which will be discussed later, no? Which employs the virtual overlay aspect of SDN technology. In other words, because this is a big technology in general, this spans several possible use cases. You can even overlay SDN in your existing network, meaning that you already have it. Say you are the administrator of a small enterprise, or even a small business, and the network for that given business has already been established, and it would be a challenge for you to completely overhaul everything if you want to implement SDN. through the available use cases that we already have right now and vendor offerings, it's possible for you to have this technology using your existing network topology, meaning you are quote unquote overlaying the technology on top of already existing physical um, transport or physical transmission. So that's also possible. Okay. Now, with of course benefits comes also challenges and limitations. So remember what I said a while ago about having the controller as a single point of class or single point of access or configuration. Well, that is also a possible limitation and even vulnerability, you know, for the network. So security. Security is both a benefit and a concern. The centralized SDN controller represents a single point of failure, and if it is left vulnerable, no, can be detrimental to the entire network. Remember that the controller is the network element where all of the configurations are stored. Okay? It is also highly utilized by your forwarding switches to ensure that packet forwarding is being done by said switches. So if you make service unavailable for the controller, then it's already detrimental to the overall performance and even operational aspect operations of the network itself. Okay. So next one, unclear definition. There is currently no established definition of what SDN is. No? It can be implemented via several means and several ways. No? Different vendors offer different approaches, and some of them even use this term SDN to even pitch that their solution is SDN. Okay, so based on industry experience already, in fact, I have seen or I have already saw some offerings wherein they would market it to be quote unquote SDN enabled. But when we look at it on a deeper scale, we really drill down the capabilities that this offering has. It's just a means of packet forwarding or even network abstraction. So it's not true SDN in sense. Okay. So lastly, slow adoption and costs. SDN technology emerged around 2011. So it has been almost a decade since it was first created. No? But still, it is open for innovation. And because of that, no, adoption is still relatively slow. And adoption here refers to because it continues to change, it continues to offer new innovations and ideas. No, it can hinder some operators, some businesses to fully adopt SDN because they don't have a clear baseline on which specific deployment to use. No? So this last point, slow adoption and cost, can also come hand in hand with market confusion as well. Because again, there are a lot of offerings available in the market. Which one would best suit this specific use case? Okay. Now, there are, as I've mentioned a while ago, there are different deployments and model types on how we can implement SDN. These are just four, no, of some that I have able to point out the most common ones. No? So we have OpenSDN, SDN by APIs, an overlay model, and a hybrid deployment. What are these? Okay, so in an OpenSDN environment, the network administrators use a protocol like OpenFlow to control the behavior of physical and virtual switches at the data plane. Arguably, you can say that this is what you would call true SDN because you are essentially implementing the physical devices to be SDN capable and at the same time using an SDN protocol like OpenFlow. Okay, so the other three, just because they are a partial implementation, doesn't mean that they are not SDN already. Okay, so for the second one, SDN by APIs, no, instead of using protocols, you implement using APIs. Okay, so meaning, notice that the architecture that I have shown in the previous slides, no, um, it's possible that you can have a different architecture altogether, meaning that you don't have the application, the controller, and infrastructure, the three basic ones. You can even implement several layers underneath. Okay? You can have more as much as possible, as needed, no? But the communicating APIs between these different layers are running the SDN enabled APIs. So this is also a valid use case or a valid model. The third one, an overlay model, is the one that I have also cited as an example a while ago, wherein you have your existing transport network. It's not SDN capable, but just implementing a single node that is able to overlay the SDN architecture on top of it, no, it's already SDN powered. So that is the overlay model. You have your existing topology there. It can run, example, IP or a traditional E1P1 transport, or heck, even microwave, no, wireless, no. And then you run SDN on top of it. That is the overlay model, and it's also a valid deployment type. Okay, and apart from these three, there are also other means of deploying SDN. So this is just under the umbrella term hybrid deployment, wherein you can even combine other technologies to implement SDN. Some of these technologies are virtualization, no? So you can implement also SDN with virtualization in play, meaning that the controller. So one example of this is that the controller can be deployed as a virtual machine, and this virtual machine is then hosted in a offshore cloud somewhere else, no? But it is managing your on-premise network. So that's also an example of a hybrid deployment. Okay? Or you can even have all the previous three here combined as a single network, especially if you have a large of a network enough. No, we can even deploy it as a hybrid. Okay, so there. Now, before I, so that is a good 30 or 40 information dense session, no? So far, do you have any questions or clarifications before I proceed?
So far, sir, wala naman po ako nakikitang question from sa Q&A
Okay.
or any chat po.
Sige, sige. Okay. So, I hope din, no, medyo hindi pa masyadong information overload din. I'm already discussing a lot of key terms and key and technical definitions here as early as 8 o'clock in the morning. No, I hope you have your coffee. No, so there. Now let me continue. No, now the architecture itself, as I have mentioned, is also dependent on protocols. No? And having said that, one of the most I don't want to say commonly used, because some of them are, because some use cases that I have from the telco perspective frankly do not use OpenFlow, but this protocol is in fact mostly used in small to medium organizations. So they are a bit on the smaller scale. No? But having said that, no, this protocol, um, OpenFlow protocol, no, this is an open source standard that was developed by the Open Networking Foundation, no, with the sole intention of implementing SDN. Okay, so the protocol in itself, it has also its own nuance, and basically on a general definition of it, no, it allows SDN-enabled switches to handle packets in an SDN manner. No, sorry, yeah, I'm trying to also find the right words. Okay, I'm pausing. No, I'm also trying to simplify also the definition without going much to the technicalities. No, so what OpenFlow does is that here, no, you notice in this diagram, no, when you implement the protocol in an SDN capable switch, no, it essentially restructures, I would say, restructures the switch to behave in this manner. So it might be wondering, what do these different blocks represent? So we'll break this one down. No? When you already run OpenFlow, what it does is that number one, the switch itself, it establishes what's called channels, which are then used by the controller to gain access or to manipulate the configurations, no, done in that given switch. Okay, this is also so you have the control channels first, then the other parts, no, of your OpenFlow switch. You also have your tables. You also have essentially here the group table and the meter table, which is used for monitoring performance. No? And then more importantly, you have the flow tables. Okay. Now, we have a separate module for this. No, it goes into detail the different tables, channels, and ports that an open flow enabled switch uses, no, to support SDN. But basically, what this does, no, if I'm going to generalize what is the functionality of OpenFlow as a protocol, no, it allows SDN to work in a switch by essentially assigning these different parts into your switch in this manner, no, and most importantly, this switch, is now able to support the controller via these OpenFlow channels. No, think of the OpenFlow channels and to be a set of tables, no, maintained and overseen by the controller, and it is used also by the controller to redirect the needed traffic, no, by the switch, no, through the flow tables. Okay, so don't worry because we have a separate module for this one in our course. We'll go into detail when you take that or when you have already started taking also that module as well. No? But for now, I'm just going to discuss here just a tip, no, of the concept, no, in general. Okay. Now, apart from restructuring or assigning these capabilities inside the switch, the OpenFlow protocol is also responsible for, okay, well, I wasn't able to show it to you here, no? The OpenFlow switch is also responsible for um, maintaining, I don't want to say maintain, no, but also to forward the needed packets, not just downwards, southbound, but also northbound. Okay, northbound meaning from the forwarding switches towards your controller. Okay. Now, notice that when you implement also OpenFlow, it propagates, no, or it is implemented between the control plane and the data plane as well. So it works in these two planes. Okay. And essentially, and very coincidentally, no, that the OpenFlow architecture fits well in the SDN architecture. No? That is why if you are a small organization and you want to experience SDN on your own, no? And let's face it, no, you don't have the necessary resources to go all out, no, or to implement a full deployment or to hire a vendor for you to build it for you. You can still do so just by looking up the OpenFlow architecture and implementing the OpenFlow protocol into your network. All you need is a network element that would serve as your SDN controller. And if you already have existing switches, make sure that they are already working or they are SDN enabled and then they support OpenFlow and you have SDN. Okay. So most of the switches that we have right now, are already supporting SDN by default. Okay. Or some of them might just require an installation of an agent that would allow the controller to communicate with said switches. Okay. But they are relatively cheaper compared to, say, going to a vendor who is able to support everything, all of the bells and whistles that you don't necessarily need if you are just a small organization. Okay. Now, the OpenFlow controller maintains the OpenFlow protocol communication channels to the switches, and it maintains a local state graph of the OpenFlow switches and exposes our northbound API to the application. So I'll highlight here the term maintain a state graph of the switches. No, all of the devices that is connected via the OpenFlow protocol, has what's called a state graph. So think of it as sort of like a snapshot of what the architecture looks like, along with the current configurations that it has for that given moment. Okay, before other changes are implemented in the architecture. So that is a state graph, and it is also being maintained by your controller. Okay. Now, the northbound API may be viewed as an abstraction of the network and allows the OpenFlow applications to read the state of the network and to instruct the network to perform various tasks. So what this does is that the reason why we maintain a state graph is because on the application side, northbound, towards here, the other apps, some applications need to, I would say, get a glimpse of what the network architecture is for that given time before it can even implement a specific service. Okay, some applications are dependent on that kind of information. So for instance, say for this instance, before a certain, say, traffic inbound to your network is being forwarded, being worked on, by the network. I'm trying to think of a simple use case. You have a web detection application in your architecture, just for an example. And before a specific packet or a suspicious packet is seen by the network, it needs to understand what it was before that packet is being sent. So that is represented in your local state graph, and it is being maintained by the controller. No? So I hope I make sense now, and based on that example. No? So there. And that is it, for SDN, and its architecture in general. So before I move on to another technology, which is NFV, let me first discuss another technology that is related to it, which is called virtualization. So some of you may have you already heard of virtualization before? So this is not virtual reality. Okay, this is not VR. This is not AR. Okay. So how about the others? Perhaps you may have heard of what virtualization is. So if not, think of it this way na lang. You have a server, and of course that server has its own operating system, and say Windows, for instance. You cannot run two operating systems on a single physical device concurrently. Right? My point here is that say you have a laptop, it is running on Windows. You can only run Windows for this specific time, right? Or say I have a Mac, no, I cannot run Windows in my Mac device, okay, without booting first to a Windows operating system that is already pre-installed in my physical device, right? So virtualization is different from dual boot. I'm not sure if you may have heard of that also, no, but some servers or some computer devices can support dual boot, meaning that um, it can have two operating systems, but it can only have one OS running at any given time. Is it possible to run two simultaneous operating systems on a physical machine at the same time? It's technically possible, no, through the use of virtualization. So that is where my point is. No? In virtualization, it allows you to essentially create objects called virtual machines and think of these virtual machines as small computers inside your large physical computer. And by that meaning that a virtual machine has its own set of cores, it has its own allocated RAM or memory, it also has its own storage. And this is just isolated on that specific object. It is packaged, okay? And it is running independently if I have another virtual machine running on that same physical device or physical server. No? Both of these virtual machines can run independently and they can have both of them different operating systems. Okay, so that is also this technology, no, virtualization is also the backbone of another technology called network functions virtualization, NFV. Okay, so this is a technology that allows services that you normally run in a network, no, um, to be hosted via virtual machines. Back then, whenever we have or whenever we want to deploy services in a network, you know, it normally is associated to a single network element or to a single physical device. Meaning, for example, if I want to have firewall as part of my service, I have to buy a dedicated firewall device for it. Okay, if I want a 5G packet gateway connected in my network, I have to buy a dedicated 5G packet gateway. Okay? If I want to have voice over Wi-Fi, I have to have the necessary network elements that would allow it to support voice over Wi-Fi. Okay? But each of them has their own dedicated functional capability. Okay, I cannot use the hardware of say a firewall to be repurposed for say a packet gateway. I cannot do that back then. Okay, but through virtualization, because we are shifting the means or the way on how we deploy a network element, we use virtualization. We are essentially using what's called commercial off-the-shelf hardware or servers. It is now possible for me that for this instance, I have a server, it runs a virtual firewall. And if I don't need that virtual firewall anymore, I can just take out the firewall capability and install it with a new or a different service such as my 5G gateway. So notice that it's similar to SDN, wherein you are decoupling also the hardware from the software, but this is more of like leaning towards the software to be a functionality that you're offering to the network. Okay. NFV mostly applies to the telecommunications sector, wherein, like myself, for instance, no, we offer several services to subscribers such as voice over Wi-Fi, 5G, LTE, okay, voice over LTE, no? And these are running on different dedicated hardware in traditional means. Through NFV, it's now easier for us to say, take out a certain service that I don't need anymore and repurpose the hardware for something else. And by doing so, no, I use what's called commercial off-the-shelf hardware, servers for short. Okay, so think of it like in an NFV architecture, you are implementing your telco services using IT infrastructure with an introduction also, or with within an addition of orchestration in play. Okay, so there is also a key component that's introduced here in NFV, which is also called orchestration. This is also a different topic on its own. No? Yeah, so there. So you'll notice the architecture of these two, no? When you already have an NFV-based architecture, apart from just also introducing your network elements to be virtual network elements, you are also introducing orchestration as part of it. Okay, which also similarly, like your SDN controller, is a means of centralizing the configuration and management of all of your network elements also inside your architecture. So notice that NFV follows architecturally a somewhat similar setup as what you would have as SDN. You have your resources, and then you also have a centralized means of control. No? In an NFV environment, you call this the MANO, the management and orchestration component. So it's the green box here. Okay. Now, NFV, it also follows a similar, a separate architecture on its own. No? And this is the one that I'm showing to you here right now. It was developed by the European Telecommunication Standards Institute, or ETSI, while OpenFlow was developed by, while SDN was developed by, I believe, Open Networking Foundation as well. Okay, so they are two separate entities, two separate organizations, and two separate standard bodies. Okay, now NFV also is another architecture, another means of deploying, no, as network services, no, and we also have a dedicated slide or a separated module for this, no, but I just want you guys to get familiar on this architecture alone. Notice that in this architecture, you have your infrastructure, you have your functions, and you also have your orchestration here. It looks somewhat similar to your SDN architecture, just shifted or just turned 90 degrees. Okay, good. Parang ito yung the orchestration, this serves as your controller, and then your infrastructure layer is this one, the NFVI, and then the applications are these ones. Okay, your VNFs or virtual network functions. So it's somewhat similar, right? So you have these similar components just laid out differently. Okay. Now, having said that, no, how can we now apply SDN and NFV as a real life use case, and how do we merge them together? No? And how do they interoperate? Is it possible for us to just have SDN? Is it possible to just have NFV, or can we combine both technologies together? Okay, so NFV and SDN are not dependent on each other. Okay, but they do have some similarities, and they also complement each other. Okay, now notice that SDN, its key capability is to split the control plane from the user plane. Okay? That's its overall definition, right? So overlain with NFV, no, SDN still separates the network forwarding functions from the control functions, making it programmable and manageable. And if V comes here into play, if say for instance, you want, say I don't have the money to deploy or to purchase physical SDN switches. Can I implement virtualized switches? It's possible. Okay, so that is one use case for it. No? NFV supports SDN by providing the infrastructure resources on which the SDN software can run. This is also where I would highlight the hybrid SDN model type as well, because you can even combine virtualization with SDN and have them work as a single system on its own. That's one use case. Now, the use case that I'm showing to you in this slide is another one. So I'll describe it to you here. No? Whenever we have a new network element that we want to deploy, normally this network element is just isolated on one physical box and located on on one physical site. So, say for instance, I have a firewall. This firewall can just be found on a single node, no? And it is just isolated there. If something goes wrong on that given site, no, and the firewall is affected, no, then the service of that network element is also affected. Okay, this is mostly also important for mission critical network services. So think of it as if you have only a single node and that node goes down, then your entire service also goes down. Okay, now where does NFV and SDN come into the picture? Think of it this way. Suppose now, instead of deploying one physical firewall, I deploy it as a virtual network function. I have it as a virtual firewall. Okay. Now, this virtual firewall, although it is hosted or serving, say, I'm just destroying the ball here. No? So, say for instance, this virtual firewall is serving um, North Luzon region of our country. It is serving all of the subscribers in the North Luzon region. No, but the hardware cannot be found near the North Luzon region, but it is found in, say, NCR. Is that even possible? It's now possible, through SDN and NFV. You can even take it one step further and decouple all of the resources needed for that virtual firewall, the compute, the storage, the orchestration, the configurations, have them all running on different data centers, no? And essentially completely decouple all of them so that on the premise that one of those data centers go down, then the entire service would not be completely down. Okay, so in a bigger picture, you can mention or you can see that the SDN controller serves as sort of like a glue of all of the different components and resources found across your network. No? And it is also responsible for stitching them all together to form a virtual network function that cannot be remotely found on where it is geographically serving. So to put more details into it, you have a virtual firewall that is serving North Luzon, but the servers themselves are found in NCR. The storage is found in Visayas and Mindanao region, and then the operators are also found in NCR. So that's how decoupled they are already, and it is theoretically possible for us to do it using these two technologies. Okay, so I discussed a lot in my session, and this is just one. This is just a glimpse of what our module can offer to us. No, but what are my key takeaways here? No, so first off, no, SDN, as I have mentioned, this is a technology that allows you to separate the control plane from the user plane or from the data plane. So that is the true definition of SDN. How you deploy it or how you implement it, it still depends also on how much of the control plane and how much of the data plane do you want to abstract or decouple. Okay, and in terms of architecture, it consists of three basic layers. You have the control layer, the application layer, and then the infrastructure layer. All of these layers communicate via APIs or application programming interfaces. Now, one of these APIs, the Southbound API, no, it uses a protocol called OpenFlow, no, and the key difference between, so here's one another thing to consider, the key difference between SDN over traditional networking is infrastructure, meaning that you are essentially decoupling the control and the forward line into two separate entities. They're no longer isolated on a single object or in a single infrastructure or in single device. Okay, that's just the term for it. SDN offers both benefits and disadvantages, which can help organizations in assessing how much of the technology may be implemented. And of course, depending on not just the readiness, but also the overall cost of implementation, you can implement SDN using different types. So the four that I was able to discuss. Okay,